I trained for a full Ironman triathlon for roughly 120 days, and I ultimately DNF'd, did not finish. The purpose of this video is to share with you what happened to me and what I did that may have potentially led to that DNF, because it was not a training issue, it was something completely different. I watched a lot of videos leading up to my full Ironman for the race I did, Ironman Chattanooga, and many others. And there were some changes with Ironman Chattanooga this year, the year I did it, and I'm going to share some of those things with you as well. This video is actually going to be in a couple of parts. I'm going to try to break it down into 2 parts, but there might be 3 parts. The whole premise is to give you the information you need to successfully finish your full Ironman triathlon. So I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to try to have the team put in screenshots and video clips where they can, but I want to try to keep this to the point, which is, why did I DNF? Okay, so I have to give you the background before I go into some of the things that happened, because actually what happened during the race was a result of some of the things I did in the background. So I trained for about 120 days. I was doing this Ironman in honor of my friend John, who passed away unexpectedly at the age of 40. He and I always talked about doing hard things and why most people didn't have what they wanted in life because they didn't work hard enough and they were afraid of doing hard things. So I decided I was going to do something hard things. So what I decided to do was a full Ironman. I didn't want to do a 70.3. I wanted to do a full Ironman. I knew I could commit to the training for it, so I did. Just so you have the background, I was training for about 120 days or so, and I did about 90%. Honestly, 90% of my workouts exactly how they were prescribed by coaches. Now, did I do the other 10% kind of like half-ass, if you would? No. I did the other 10%, but I sometimes had to cut things short. I kind of had to, cut a little here because of time constraints, things like that. Obviously, working full time, it's very, very hard. I do have the luxury where I have some freedom in my schedule because I own my own company. However, I did not cut back on the workouts 90% of the time. I just did what was prescribed. So that's the background there. I've been doing sports and athletics my whole life. I've recently started running. I've done High Rocks competition recently this past year in High Rocks, Miami. So I do have a good base for training. I do jiu-jitsu. I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and I do jiu-jitsu about 3 days a week. And I go to the gym and I lift weights about 6 days a week. I'm telling you all that for background to what's coming next. So start training for the Ironman. The biggest fear for me was the swim. I was not a strong swimmer. I'm a big guy, and my legs sink in the pool or wherever. So, of course, first thing I was going to do was get a full wetsuit and something that had a good buoyancy. So I ended up getting a Orca wetsuit, and if you want, I'll throw down in the comments which one I got, and you could check it out. It was the one that had the good flotation and good ratings for that, so that's what I got. In the pool workouts, when I started, I could barely get across 25 meters in the pool without being out of breath, and I'd have to rest for a minute and then come back 25 meters and then rest for about a minute and go back. That's how bad I was at swimming. And, of course, I didn't have any form. So I hired a coach, and this coach gave me pointers and showed me things that completely changed how I swam, completely changed my world. And this is something I highly recommend that you do if you are someone that is not a strong swimmer. Even if you hire a coach for a few lessons, you'll get some grounding and the fundamentals and foundation for what you need. I worked with a couple of different coaches, actually. One was a coach that specialized in total immersion swimming, which I learned a lot from, which was huge. And then another open water swimming coach. And this was like I said, I cannot tell you how important this was. But by the time I got up to the week before Ironman, I was now swimming back and forth in the pool for 1,000 meters nonstop, no problem. So big change. However, in my pool workouts, I never did a 2.4 mile swim. I would break it up by 500s and 1,000. So a 2.4 miles straight, I'd never done prior to the race. I have swam in open water, but I never swam in a river like the Tennessee River, where Ironman Chattanooga is. Now, I don't know if you're watching this video for Ironman Chattanooga specifically. I'm going to get into some deeper specifics in this video, but even more in the next video. But if you're watching this video because you're thinking of doing a full Ironman and you simply don't want to DNF, you don't want to have what happened to me happen to you, then, like I said, this is the video for you. Okay, so during all my training, I did everything I had to do with nutrition, and a month before the race, I actually ordered what they were going to have on the race course for my nutrition. So they had Mortal Hydration and they had Morton gels, and I hired that. I knew they were going to do bananas and stuff, and I used that stuff during training anyway. So I just trained with my normal supplements and my normal supplementation during my workouts up until a month before, and then I started using that stuff because I wanted to have my body ready to receive those things on race day. I didn't want race day to be the first time I put a Morton gel inside my body or drank Mortal Hydration. Horrible idea, so you don't want to do that. So I did that, and a week out, of course, tapering. I arrived in Chattanooga about 5 days before the race. The race was on a Sunday, and I got there on a Tuesday. So 5 or 6 days before the race. And in that week, I did something that ended up being probably what led to my DNF. I had been reading and watching videos and going in the forums like most of you are doing, going on Reddit, about what to do pre-race. And everything I read said, make sure you hydrate before the race. Make sure you're hydrating in the 72 hours before the race. So what I did was 72 hours before the race, I started hydrating. And in my mind, hydrating was just taking on extra water. So every meal I went to in Chattanooga, I would just ask the waiter or waitress for a couple of extra glasses of water. So usually you just sip on one glass of water to the meal, maybe another. But now every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I was drinking 2, 3, 4 glasses of water just so I was hydrating. I was doing electrolytes in the morning, but then throughout the day, I wasn't. This led me to what my coach later said it wasn't my coach prior to the race. It was a coach I spoke to after the race, that I had flushed my system of my electrolytes because I was drinking so much water. So when it came to race day, I was electrolyte depleted. So let's go to race morning. Wake up at around 4:30, start doing things. I want to go down to transition to put my bags, put the last things in my bags, put the water bottles on my bike. And I do that at around 5:30. So when I'm heading down there, I have my wetsuit on, but only halfway. I have it pulled up, and I have a full sleeve wetsuit, and I have it halfway, so it's around my legs. Go out, and it's warm, and I knew it's going to be a warm day. And I heard all these rumors of, this high DNF rate at Ironman Chattanooga when the temperature is over 86 degrees or something like that. It's one of the highest DNF rates on the circuit, which I don't know if that's true, but I heard that, and I read that in a few different spots. So I was very, very conscious about hydration and making sure that I was prepared. So I thought, well, I go do the bike stuff, and then I get on the shuttle. You take a little school bus, 2.4 miles about up the road to where the swim starts. Line up for the swim start, and they say that it is 76.1, so the swim is not wetsuit legal. So what that means is it's now wetsuit optional. So you can still wear a wetsuit, which I was wearing one anyway. I need the buoyancy, but everyone not wearing a wetsuit went before those wearing a wetsuit. So I had put myself in the 1 hour 30-ish swim time because I was confident now in my swimming ability. And based on my times in the pool, I calculated that that's how I was going to swim. Now, they say at Chattanooga, there's a current, so be mindful of the current giving you assist. But everyone I talked to and everything I read said, just line up with your anticipated swim time. Don't worry about the current. So that's what I did. I was standing there now. Once I got there at the swim start area, it's like a parking lot and a park, and everyone is just sitting there, laying on the grass, whatever, just hanging out, doing nothing. And I was sitting there doing nothing too, and it was getting warmer and warmer, and I still have this wetsuit bottom on, and I feel myself, I'm warm. So at some point, everyone starts lining up on this path to go toward the swim, and I start doing that too. And it was at that point, which is maybe, I would say, 45 minutes out from the swim start, I put up my sleeves, zip up my wetsuit, and now I'm waiting there. Then I realize that I'm not going in with the 1 hour and 30-minute swim group. Everyone who's not wearing a wetsuit is going from the beginning all the way down to 2 hours plus. After all those people go, then those with wetsuits start going, starting with the people in wetsuits who think they're going to swim an hour and then going back. So this was yet another hour of me standing there in my wetsuit. I would say maybe not full hour, but maybe 45 minutes or so. So I was warm, I was nervous, of course, and then I go into the water. I would say about 5 or 10 minutes into the swim, I start feeling something weird in my quads. They feel like they're like kind of tightening up. No pain, but kind of like a muscle tightness. I didn't know what was going on. Never in my entire life of doing sports have I ever had a cramp. I've played every sport under the sun, everything you can imagine. Never, ever had a cramp of any kind ever. During my training, 3-4 months of training, never had a cramp during the swim, biking, or running, ever, ever, ever. My quads are cramping. I have to stop, hold onto a kayak, and literally for 10 minutes stretch my quads. I go again, and a few minutes later, quads are kind of like getting tight, spasming. I could tell they're cramping. It wasn't pain. This wasn't a painful cramp. This was just like a muscle tightness, and I felt like a little bit of spasm. So I grab another kayak, and I stretch for another 10 minutes. Finally, I realize every time I try to kick a little bit, that's when I feel it in my legs. So I realize I have to do the swim without my legs. So I am just pulling with my arms, trying to keep my form. My legs were the little flutter every couple strokes was to kind of balance my body out, like I had been taught. Couldn't do it. So anyway, I am struggling in this swim. I get down the river. I'm one of the last 50 people in the water. There was, I think, 1,600 people in Ironman Chattanooga here this year in 2025. When I go to get out of the water, the ladder you get out of, actually, the first rung is high up. So you got to like really bring your knee to your chest to get up on that first rung. And I grab the sides to get out. Instantly, my forearms cramp up and my legs cramp up trying to get out. So I realized at this point that I was in some serious trouble. Something was wrong. I get out. I try to put a smile on. I'm running out. I cannot wait to get this wetsuit off my body. So I go to the wetsuit peelers. They take the wetsuit off, and there was just like hot water trapped in my wetsuit. So the river swim, by the way, for those of you who want, and I'm going to get into this the next video about the race and my thoughts of this race. But the river swim was great. Wetsuit peelers, run up the ramp. I start feeling some cramps. Get my transition bag. It wasn't that hard because there was only a few bags left. And go into the tent. Change, get into my bike gear, and in my transition bag, I had a Gatorade. So I realized, okay, I need electrolytes. So I slammed the Gatorade, and I had a little snack, and I go out. I think I had about a 16-minute transition. I'm not sure. Don't quote me, but 16 or 18 minutes. Get out on the bike. When you leave transition at Ironman Chattanooga, literally within a couple hundred yards, there's a little climb, and right away on that climb, my right quad started spasming and cramping. This time, it hurt. So I'm like freaking out. So I'm saying, okay, I just had the Gatorade. I just need to just move my legs a little bit. They were just kind of like dangling behind me for, an hour and a half, by the way. So my swim time was 1 hour and 27 minutes. Right around what I thought it would be. And that was my kind of time in the pool. So, but I had stopped a couple times to do the stretching. So getting out under an hour and a half, but I had the stretching time. We came to find out later on that evening that there was almost zero current in the river that day because I guess the dam was closed. I heard this from multiple people. So the dam was not open, so there was almost no flow in the river. And I did notice when I was holding onto the kayak stretching, we weren't really moving at all. I was just holding stationary. I was not getting forward progress at all, which is illegal. So I was just holding on the kayak, literally trying to like stretch my quad behind me. And I'm looking at the shoreline like I'm at the beach, like at the riverbank, and we're not really moving. So just for knowledge, this year the current wasn't that great. I'll get into that in the other video. If you're expecting a good current swim, and that's why you're choosing Ironman Chattanooga, which a lot of people do, just be ready because this year there was like no great current. Okay, there was a current, but it wasn't great. Onto the bike, you have to go out of town on a climb, and then you got to go up and off ramp onto the highway on a climb, and then you have to get on this highway, which is the new bike course, which I'll get into the next video, and you're going on this monster climb. Long and short of it, I literally, both my quads locked up in agonizing pain about a dozen times just on the first part of the first loop. So once you come out of town, climb up onto the highway, and then you have this massive climb. You have to do 3 loops on the highway, no sun protection, just completely open and exposed, and you have to do 3 loops on the highway. Each leg of the loop is 18 miles. So you got to do 18 up, 18 down. So each loop is 36 miles. You have to do 3 of these 36-mile loops, and you come back down into town, and that's it. So the year before, they changed the course to this new bike course. The year prior, 2023, the bike course went through Georgia, and everyone said it was nice. It was rolling, and it was scenic, and it was a beautiful bike ride. 2024, they didn't get the permit in Georgia, which is not exactly the truth. I found that out later. I'll talk about that in the next video. And they did this highway bike, 2025, but it was only 108 miles in 2024. This year for 2025, they extended it, and where and how they extended it, I feel was not a good idea, and I'll get into that in a later video. But anyway, for the sake of this, 3 loops. I go up the first loop literally a dozen times. I'm collapsing on the side of the road. Legs are completely cramping and spasming. Pain I've never felt before. Stretch, try to get my, whatever. People are stopping, giving me salt tabs, giving me pickle juice, giving me better electrolytes because I only had tailwind on my bike and my water bottles. And I made it up, made it back down. And it just, I don't even know, it took like a couple of hours or more than a couple of hours just to, do just that one loop. It was horrible. I think I averaged 10 miles per hour, which is on my training rides, I was averaging 21, 22 miles an hour. So just so you know my level. And I competed riding, avid mountain biker growing up, did road biking. So cycling was going to be my strong point here. Come around for the second loop, and I go for the second loop. When I come back down to do my third loop, it says it's closed, and they said I missed the bike cutoff. So there was a bike cutoff where you had to start your third loop by 3:15 p.m. And at this point when I got there, I think it was 4:45. So I missed it by, an hour and a half, clearly because of everything I was dealing with on the first loop. The second loop I did much faster because I had salt in my system, but my legs were just shot from all the spasming and all the locking up. So that was that. Go second loop, come back for the third loop, and they don't let me go. Now, I was feeling good at this point. Not great, but I was feeling good. I got up to 24 miles an hour on one part of the loop coming back down, and there's a screamer downhill at the end of the loop that I hit 41 miles an hour on. So I was feeling good, and I felt like I could do that third loop. Now, I'm going to get into this bike course in the course description video to tell you about how crazy this bike course is and how I think it's going to adversely affect people who sign up for Ironman Chattanooga unless they change it. But that's for the second video. So if you see part 2 anywhere around here, that. Okay, so spasming, cramping, go back into town and go back to transition, and that's it. I'm done. My day's over. I wasn't allowed to go any further because they had it coned off, and that was it. Completely dejected, completely upset, completely just, angry because I had done so much training and physically I was prepared for this race. However, the thing I was most worried about, not finishing the Ironman or having a problem, was that I'd have a flat tire or a mechanical on the bike. In my mind, if I could get through the swim, I was finishing that race. I was 1,000% confident of that. And there's a lot of people who I talk to who, when it goes talking about an Ironman, they feel the same way. The swim is the big thing. If we get through the swim, I can get on the bike, do the bike, and then just get to the marathon. And on the marathon, if you need to walk, you walk. So a lot of people have that mindset. I'm not saying that's the right mindset, but a lot of people just have that. Like, if I get out of the swim, I'm good. And I had the same thing. Ironman Chattanooga, super fast river swim, and rolling bike course. This course is not a rolling bike course. Fun fact. You'll see that in part 2. And then everyone knows the marathon at Ironman Chattanooga is very, very hilly with that Barton Ave climb that you got to do both times, and the bridge you got to do both times, and then in the neighborhood in the back that goes past the golf course, somehow it's like weird, a loop through a neighborhood past the golf course, and somehow it's just up. You're just going up the entire time, and then you come back around. It was so bizarre. Anyway, talk about that next video. So my day was over. I never thought. I thought it was going to be mechanical. if it did happen, and I was prepared for that. I had all the stuff on my bike, under my seat, the tools, the tubes, all that stuff. I never thought it was going to be a nutritional thing that would lead to my DNF. Never. I didn't even think about it because it never came up in training. So in review, mistake number 1, too much water, not enough electrolytes in the days prior to the race. Number 2, I didn't eat breakfast that morning. And one of the things I never did in training, and in my training, I always tried to swim. I was either swimming at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. I was always trying to swim around the same time where I would be swimming on race day, and I did that intentionally. And I never ate before my swims. I just didn't feel right to eat before the swim. So I would take my little pre-workout, and I would go. The other thing I didn't do during my swim workouts was take any kind of nutrition or electrolytes or anything. I didn't drink anything until I got out of the pool because I knew during the swim, you don't have nutrition. You got to just, you got to swim, right? There's no rest, aid station in the swim. So you could stop and you could take a breather, but that's it. So I purposely didn't train with nutrition during my long swims. I realize now 2 things. When I do my next Ironman, which I am doing, I am 100% going to eat something that morning because with all the adrenaline and the extra distance and everything else, I felt depleted toward the end of that swim. And I got out of the water and I was hungry. I was literally hungry. So bad idea for me personally. I'm sharing with you, and now after talking to a high-level Ironman coach, which I probably should have done before the race, I'm going to eat something. For sure, 100% I'm going to eat something. What you decide to eat doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but what you decide to eat, listen to your coach or do what you normally do. But the people that I spoke to that said they didn't eat before going in the water, I guess some can do it. I now realize for that Ironman swim, I need to eat something. So I'll probably do some maybe toast with some almond butter and maybe like a banana or something like that, just something like that. I don't think I would do anything big or heavy. The other thing I would do is, of course, cut back on the water and increase the electrolytes. And right before going into the water, my plan is to just be sipping on electrolytes. I'm going to be using Element, and it's 1,000 milligrams of sodium. So I'll likely be sipping on that. And you can have a water bottle with you as long as you put it in your morning clothes bag, sipping on that right until you go in the water. So that would be my plan. I eat about an hour to 90 minutes, but I would say about 90 minutes before going in the water, and then be sipping on the salts. And I take a product called Vespa, which I'll get into in my nutrition video. And that's the plan. So the drinking the water was a bad idea. The other thing that was a bad idea was having my wetsuit on that entire time. I feel like, I don't know if it did anything to my quads just because my wetsuit is tight. I have bigger thighs. And I don't know if that constriction played a part in, I've read a lot of things now of people who said they cramped every time they wear a wetsuit, but when they don't wear a wetsuit, they never cramp. So I don't know if that's, but I swam in my wetsuit for my pool swims, but I would get to the pool, pull the wetsuit on, and just get right in the water, do my swimming, get right out. I never sat there for 2 hours, essentially, with my wetsuit bottoms on, and then 45 minutes with my full wetsuit on. So I never did that. Wasn't prepared for it. Did it play a factor? I'm reading now that for a lot of people it does, and it can. So the other thing I would do is I would put my wetsuit on if you're going to wear a wetsuit, I personally would put it on at the absolute last possible minute. I mean, not like right before you jump in, but like, 10 minutes, 15 minutes before, if you can. Don't sit in your wetsuit for 2 hours like I did. That's one thing that I am not going to do. And now in talking to people who I tell them what happened to me, they're like, yeah, duh, don't put your wetsuit on. Okay, so that. Different people feel different ways about this. I wanted to wait to take caffeine, and some people said that they take caffeine right before they go into the water. Once again, I'm not someone who did that during training, but I think now that I've done a couple of swims post-race, I've tried that. I did a Morton gel. They have a gel that has, I think it's just 100 milligrams of caffeine. And I got to tell you, I ate a little something, some like sourdough with peanut butter or almond butter and half a banana, did the Vespa, and was sipping some salts, and I did one of those packets right before I went in for this training swim, open water, and I felt like I could swim all day. I felt amazing. So I think I'm going to copy that for my next Ironman, because it just was in my mind. I'm like, oh, don't take caffeine until you need it, and it's going to be the second half of the marathon or what. Yeah, like for me, I realized that all the things I read and all the stuff, not saying it's wrong, but it just didn't work for me. And now I'm learning what worked for me and what would have helped me get through things a little bit better. In my transition bag, I told you I had that Gatorade, but I should have had things like a pickle juice. There's a product, I think it's called Hot Shot or something. It's for cramping. I should have had one of those. I had so much crap in my T1 bag, but in that moment, I didn't have the stuff I needed. And I would probably have salt tabs. I would have salt tabs because, once again, if that happens, and it doesn't hurt, especially if it's hot, to have some salt tabs before you go out on the bike. The other thing I would throw in the transition one bag that I didn't have would be like, I had a bar or a gel or something like that, a honey gel. But I would actually just put, for me, I'm going to put an actual sandwich, probably just like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the T1 bag. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich is something I feel like I can always eat at any point, and I'm going to be able to get it down. So maybe a banana, I don't know. I just feel like the peanut butter and jelly gives you like a little bit of carb, like a little bit of fat, and that little bit of that sugar boost. So that's what I am going to do for the next Ironman. And then that's really it. And then I was on the bike. When I got onto the bike, the fluid I was taking was Tailwind, which was a carb electrolyte drink, but it wasn't enough electrolytes. So that's another thing I have to now dial in. However, when I was struggling on the bike and I was like getting to the aid stations, the things at the aid stations that did help, once again, was the Morton gels, and the Morton gel with the caffeine and the little bananas. Now, they had these Morton like protein bars, or I don't know what they were, granola bars or something like that. They had them cut up into halves. I tried to eat one. It didn't sit well with me. I was able to get a couple of bites of banana down, and the gels were going down. And I felt really good after I got the gels. It was super, I can't even tell you how hot it was on that highway, and I felt so much better after I took a gel. So now my strategy is to actually have those gels on my bike, because I was thinking I'll just get them at the aid stations, right? And I think I'm going to now have them on my bike, whether in my little bag or have them taped to my bike, because that was something I felt the difference in using them during the race. So now it made me realize, okay, don't just rely on getting them, because I think the aid stations on that bike were about every 15 miles, and sometimes you're going to need it before, like I did, because I was struggling. So on the bike, I would have salt tabs. And once again, I would keep maybe a pickle juice and maybe one of those hot shots on my bike as well in the bag. In case you get in trouble on the bike, you never know. That happens. Now, some of you might be watching this video and say, oh, I never cramp. I never did. Yeah, me neither. I never did either. So these are some of the, let me say, the redundancies that I'm putting into my plan going into the next race. So, so that's it. That's my story. I ended up doing 77 miles of the bike. And, it was, once the pain and the spasming and the cramping that I've never felt before went away on the second loop, I felt like it was definitely more manageable of a day. But once that's happening to your legs, spasms, cramping, locking up, completely seized, and like it was like rock hard. You could punch my quads, and it was like they were like solid. Once that happens to you, it's hard to recover from that. I mean, for a couple of weeks after the race, I still had some pain and some tenderness in my quads from that experience. So it was even hard on loop 2. Could I have done loop 3? Yeah. Okay. This brings me to my final point, which I think is important for those of you who are just trying to, finish the Ironman, which was my goal. I had no time in mind. I kind of said it'd be nice to finish under 15 hours, but my goal was to finish. And if that's you, you're going to really want to listen now. If your goal is simply to finish the Ironman, you are probably looking at cutoff times like I was, because I'm not a strong swimmer, but I knew I was a strong cyclist, so I was not too worried about that, but I was really worried about cutoff times. When I read the rules, or when I read the athlete guide, it said that you had 10 hours to complete the swim, T1, and the bike from the time the last athlete enters the water. On the day of Ironman Chattanooga, the last athlete entered the water at roughly 8:30 a.m. So that would mean you had till 6:30 p.m. to finish the bike course. And if you're like me and you think, okay, got it, 10 hours from the last guy to go in the water or last girl to go in the water, got till 6:30, 10 hours, I'm set, I got my time in my mind, I'm ready to go, you are dead wrong. You do not have 10 hours to finish the bike course from the time the last athlete gets in the water. I know that now because I lived it during my Ironman Chattanooga. You have to make that intermediary cutoff. If you don't, the time to that 10 hours doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. With me, it didn't matter that I got in the water at 7:30 and you have 10 hours from when the last person goes in the water. That was 8:30 and literally an hour after me. So I felt in my mind, and the whole time, and your mind is going everywhere. Your mind plays wacky stuff when it's oppressively hot. You're going up and down this highway. You're cramping and all this stuff. In my mind, I just said, I have till 6:30 to finish this bike course. But that was so. Even when I was struggling, I just kept looking at my watch. I'm like, all right, I got till 6:30 to finish this bike course. And I assumed that, and I was right because obviously when I went in the water, I didn't know when the last person was going in the water, but based on how many people were behind me and how they were letting people go every 5 seconds to jump in the river, I speculated it was going to be at least, and I'd been to Ironman races before, so I kind of knew the depth of the field and the how everyone was lining up. So I speculated that it was going to be about an hour behind me for the last person to go in the water, and I was right. The last person went in the water roughly 8:30 a.m. I think I went in right before 7:30. So I kept thinking that, dead wrong. You have to make it to that intermediary cutoff. And in Ironman Chattanooga, it was you had to start the third loop by 3:15 p.m. So if you got out of the water at 8:30, and because you were the last one in the water, let's say you jump in the water, you're the last person in, no one's behind you, you jump in and it's 8:30. And you are not a strong swimmer, so it takes you 2 hours, and for a lot of people, it takes 2 hours. So now you get out of the water at 10:30. Let's just say you have a 15-minute transition. So now you're at 10:45. So now you get on the bike at 10:45, and you're thinking, I'm good because I have 10 hours from when I went in the water at 8:30. So I got till 6:30 to do this course. You don't. You simply don't. Here's a reality. If you get on that bike at 10:45, you only have till 3:15 to do the first 2 loops, which is roughly 72 miles. This means you need to be averaging 16 miles per hour on the bike, roughly, in order to make that bike cutoff. Now, if you are a 2-hour or 2-hour plus swimmer, I don't know if you're going to be a strong cyclist. Some people are, some I don't know. But so you got to remember that. And for a lot of people, averaging 16 miles per hour is not easy. Now you take into account a course like the new Ironman Chattanooga course here in 2025, and you have a just an age grouper. For them to average 16 miles an hour on that course with these hills that I'm going to describe in the next video that just rip the soul out of your body, that's going to be really tough. It's going to be really tough. Now, if you had an extra hour, that would be okay. It might give you a little bit of breathing room and bring that average mile per hour down. So the next thing I'm going to do in my next Ironman is I'm going to get in the water as early as possible. Now, I know some people might say, oh, don't do that. Oh, you're going to slow down the faster swimmers or whatever. I'm looking to finish this race, and I'm not looking to hinder anyone else. I'm not looking to get in anyone's way. If people have to swim over me, okay, I know it might happen, but it happens for people who go in the water at an hour 40. They get swum over by someone. So I'm not really worried about that. And I'm giving you this move or this strategy because I realize it matters. And if you're someone who might be chasing cutoffs and you just really want to finish the race, I think this might be something you want to consider. I'm not saying it is 100% going to work or whatever, but I know for a fact in my next Ironman, I am going to get into the water as soon as possible because I realize that, God forbid, something like the cramping thing happens again. The sooner I get in the water, the sooner I get out of the water. As soon as I get out of the water, that gives me that buffer to get to that first time cutoff, whether it's usually around mile 70. So if you get out of the water an hour before you would typically get into the water, that gives you another hour to reach that cutoff time, that on-course cutoff time on the bike course, because the 10 hours to do everything goes out the window if you don't make that cutoff. I was upset once it hit me because I realized I still had time in my 10-hour window. And if it was not blocked off, I felt like I could have went and I would have had to do that 36-mile loop in like an hour, I think an hour and a half or hour 45 or something like that. But in my mind, although my legs were shot and screaming, whatever, I at least wanted the chance to go do that third loop. I wanted the opportunity to try. And if I ran out of my 10-hour clock wound out while I was out on that third loop, okay, great. I'll pull over, send a car to come get me or, whatever, and I'm done. But the fact that I wasn't even allowed to go on that third loop, although I had time in my 10-hour window, that kind of bothered me. I'm not saying anything's wrong with the Ironman rules or whatever. I just personally, I was bothered by that it was blocked off and I wasn't allowed to go. And I thought I'd be able to go and they just pull me off the course. No. So keep that in mind. That 10 hours to finish the swim, T1, and the bike is not really 10 hours from when that last athlete goes in. Be mindful of the intermediary cutoff. Look at how long it's going to take from when you possibly get out of the water to transition time to when you get on the bike. So, and you got to anticipate, when are you anticipating starting the bike? And then from that point, how long is it going to take you to ride roughly 70 miles? And you got to now calculate. If you don't think you're going to make it, or you think the miles per hour you're going to have to do to make that time cutoff is beyond the scope of your bike cycling capacity, I would get in the water sooner. That's just me. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not worried about the bike or in any capacity now because I know about nutrition, but I'm just sharing this. And now I'm learning that there's a lot of age groupers who do just this. They get in sooner to give them a better buffer to make that bike cutoff on the bike course. So like I said, I'm not saying that this is the way or whatever. I'm just saying that if that's a concern for you and you want to finish the Ironman, it's something you might want to consider. Just go in the water a little bit earlier, and okay, maybe some people pass you, but maybe you could draft off someone who's a little bit quicker than you, and you draft off that person, and it helps you. That's what I'm going to do, and I think that's something that would help. And clearly, if you go on the forums, there's a lot of people doing it because it helps them get out of the water sooner. So that's it. Okay, that's it for this video. If you have any questions about anything else that led to my DNF or things about Ironman Chattanooga, drop them in the comments below. I'm going to do my best to answer everyone's questions because there's a lot of stuff I shared, and a lot of stuff I watched a lot of videos, and I didn't quite get a lot of stuff that I think I needed. And although I watched great videos by Caleb and Katie Eford, I think their channel is Eford Strong, make sure you head on over their channel. They got great Ironman Chattanooga videos. Give them a follow. They are amazing. I met Caleb there, got a photo with him, thanked him for the videos that I watched 100 times. His wife, Katie, wasn't there because she was prepping for Ironman Kona. And by the way, amazing. She finished Ironman Kona, and she crushed it. So congrats to Katie Eford over there. So go drop a comment on their page and congratulate her as well because finishing Ironman Kona is insane. So that's it. Drop the comments, like, subscribe, do all that stuff or not. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to put links to everything I can below. I'm not sponsored by anyone, so the links are just links. Use them if you want. If not, I don't care. It's fine. That's okay too. Next video, I'm going to actually go over the stuff about the course that people want to know about that I didn't learn about in other Ironman Chattanooga videos. And then I'm going to do a separate video about things to do in Chattanooga, like what I did and what our group did in the days prior to the race and after the race and in the day after the race. So that's a whole another video that might be good for family or spectators. And I'm going to talk about some other race courses as well. All right. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. And yes, I will be seeking redemption in 2026 at another full Ironman. You guys can document all my training and follow along on my Instagram, and I'm over here on YouTube as well. Thanks for watching. Stay strong. Get your training in. I'll see you next time. If you are doubting whether you can complete a full Ironman, you need to remove that doubt from your mind. I saw people out there that had recently lost 100 pounds. I saw a woman out there who had lost her arm in a car accident. You see all kinds of people out there of all ages. I saw someone out there that was almost 80 years old. Ironman's motto is anything is possible. And my company, 221B Tactical, our motto is eliminate the impossible. You got to eliminate the word impossible, eliminate what might be impossible from your mind. So if you're watching this video, it might be because you're contemplating doing a full Ironman, and you might have some doubts of, can I do this? Can I really do this? And the answer is yes. Yes, you can, because there's people who are doing it that probably have other issues going on and a far less capacity than you that are doing it. And when I saw those people, I said, wow, that is amazing. These people are just amazing. What's my excuse? So that's what I'll leave you with. What's your excuse? People with no legs doing Ironman. That is what is possible. So don't think you can't. Just figure out and say, how can I? How can I? What do I need to do to finish this race? No matter what it takes. And you will. And I hope this video is just one of the things that helps you do it. All right. Take care.